No lump of coal for a gift for Bills Mafia as the Bills end up hanging on and get themselves a Christmas Eve Festivus Day win, 24-22 over a Chargers team that had no business hanging around. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone Podcast.
And I'm Jon Scott, who got down from the luxury that is the SoFi Stadium press box. I was on the field doing some extra work today, Kevin. Had the camera on my shoulder, shooting some highlights. It was enjoyable. It, I think, will bring maybe a cool, different type of perspective as we talk through this game, because I viewed it from obviously a different vantage point, being on the field level, but simply just not being in the know of the numbers or anything like that. It's just more of an observation field type of thing. So I think the conversation is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah,
over a game that was was not cool to watch.
Cool. Not fun to watch it. And I don't know if it's me, John, but the one game where I'm not here to do the post-game show, the Bills rout the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm here doing this game against the Chargers where, you know, it's the holiday weekend, John. Let's be honest, everyone wants everything to be cake on a holiday weekend. The last thing I was thinking of was a nail-biter of a football game coming down to the final minute of play. But it's the Buffalo Bills, John, and you expect it. The Bills play up against tough competition. This team seems to play down to lesser competition. Maybe we got a little bit of that in this game against the Chargers. Maybe the Chargers were more motivated coming into this one because everything was turned upside down with a new coach and a new interim general manager out there in L.A., but it ended up playing out. It is what it is. The Bills started out flat. They looked like they did pre-Joe Brady at the beginning of this game, where it looked like they weren't going to be able to do anything on offense. They right the ship towards the end of the first half. They come up with plays when needed in the second half and get the win, John. And as we've been saying all post-game show, the Steelers got the win over the Bengals, and now the Bills are indeed in control of their playoff future.
I mean, the game it started off terribly. I mean, first three possessions, punts for the Bills. First possession for the Chargers, 90-yard drive. Bills defense did a good job of holding them to a field goal. There was a drop in that possession by Quentin Johnston that would have been a touchdown. It was 10-0, and you're thinking, holy smokes, is this going to be another part of this crazy story that's been the Bills season of they beat some good teams. They seem like they finally dug themselves out of their hole, that they feel like the team that many believe they would be. And then you drop this game with the playoffs and things starting to shake out in your favor to an undermanned Chargers squad. And it was bad. And then they got the big jolt, the one play, 57-yarder, Josh Allen putting the cape on, and Gabe Davis emerging after he's been missing in action for the majority of the past month and a half. So it was then it felt like, okay, maybe they're back on track. Then third quarter, interception by Josh. They score another touchdown, punt, fumble. You feel like they're about to, all right, they're going to put it away. And it's not going to be pretty, but it won't be as tight as maybe it felt like early. And then it sure as heck was, man. And the offense and defense had to make some plays late to get out of here with the W.
Escape from L.A., John. Remember that movie? Escape from New York. Escape
Kurt Russell.
From L.A. Dang right, Kurt Russell, my man. That's a throwback right there. But, yeah, you talk about the start of this game, John, and I know I bring it up ad nauseum, but they start the game with that quick wide receiver screen to Stephon Diggs. He catches it, falls on the ground. Looks like he injured himself a little bit and leaves for a while. The second that was the opening play of the game, I had a bad feeling in my stomach about this. But you see at times the end of the second quarter that the Bills are who we think they are and who they should be and are able to do it. You brought up Gabe Davis. He had that big touchdown pass, John, but he also had another great catch down the sideline, something maybe we saw from him a couple of years ago with that little tiptoe act, and was just more involved in this game. And then on the flip side, James Cook, he was the hero a week ago. I don't know, John. At times, you want to lean on James Cook, and I thought maybe they should have done that a little bit more. I know we talked about leading up to the game how bad the Chargers' pass defense is, but the fumbles, the Hardy had a fumble on a punt return. I think Cook dropped two and maybe regained one of them, or someone else fell on one of them. Josh Allen with the it was just, it had all the earmarks of a game earlier in the season where they lose by a field goal at the end of the game. But Ed Oliver, of course, and I'm all over the map right now, so forgive me, John. But then Ed Oliver comes up big, John. But stick to the offense. Gabe Davis steps up.
Yeah.
James
This is the
Cook.
order. This is the order we're going to go here. We're going to do the Gabe Davis.
And John is
that work for
frozen
you?
now. You froze. Say it again.
All right. We're going to start with a Gabe Davis conversation, then go to a Stephon Diggs conversation, and then we can go to James Cook, okay? Because this is, we talk about the Josh Allen experience.
Yeah.
This is the Gabe Davis experience. I'm looking at his game log, 2 for 32 in the opener, 6 for 92 the week after, 1 for 35, 3 for 61. Jacksonville, 6 for 100 and a touchdown. He was awesome in that game. Then 3 for 21, 1 for 6. Then Tampa, 9 for 87. Then this most recent stretch has really bottomed out. Cincinnati, no catches. Denver, 2 for 56. Jets, no catches on no targets. Philly, 6 for 105 on 12 targets. Then the past 2 weeks, he didn't have a catch on 3 total targets. And then he gets 4 catches for 130 and looks everything the bit of why people get so frustrated with Gabe Davis, because you see these peaks, and then you also, they're coming off these valleys. Just the inconsistency with him is what I think ultimately might make the Bills move on from him in this offseason, but also could potentially still get him paid. I mean, he has the highs, just there's no middle ground with him. And the Bills, though, they needed the peak, because we could transition next into the Stephon Diggs conversation, because I don't know what's going on there. I don't.
Okay, so I want to ask you this question while we're talking about Gabe Davis real quick. The end of the Eagles game when him and Josh Allen weren't on the same page, and I'm not saying that Josh lost faith in him, but it seemed like after that moment, the last couple of weeks, that almost like Josh wasn't even looking his way at all. And again, I don't want to read too much into things, but that's kind of what we do, is read too much into things, that maybe Gabe Davis wasn't in the team's doghouse, but maybe Josh Allen subconsciously put him in his own doghouse.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, you'd never get anyone to talk about that or whatever. I don't think it's unreasonable to maybe think that, because the target share has been down. I mean, there's been moments, so many people talk about his catch percentage, where, okay, the production's not there, but the targets have been there. That's kind of when we transition and move on to the Diggs conversation. The target share is there, not as big as it was early, but the production is not there. And this is what Gabe Davis does here, getting back to him and putting a bow on it. Feast or famine, it seems. So that's we got the feast a couple days before Christmas.
All right, so we'll talk about Stephon Diggs, John, and this is 2 weeks in a row now where he's come up clutch when you needed Stephon Diggs, but he just, throughout the game, just doesn't seem part of either what the Bills are doing or what is successful with this offense. the couple of times, I mean, Josh threw the interception trying to go long to him, which I think if you're rolling right and you're trying to throw a deep ball left, I think even Josh Allen couldn't do what he thought he could do there. There was a play kind of over the middle where if the defensive back had turned around, he would have picked that one off too. It just seems like when they go to Stephon Diggs at times, it's forced, and then they're not going to him. But man, if you just want to keep winning and keep advancing, Diggs comes up with that huge catch against the Cowboys and a huge catch tonight against the Chargers.
Okay, that's fine. You're not wrong, but
Of course I'm not.
he hasn't had a 100-yard game since October 15th, the Giants game. He had 10 for 100 yards on 16 targets. The rest of these, especially recently here, I mean, the couple weeks after that, Cincinnati, Tampa, New England, or whatever. Denver, 3 for 34. Jets, 4 for 27. 6 for 74 against the Eagles in overtime. 4 for 24 against Kansas City. 4 for 48. And then tonight, 5 for 29 on 8 targets. Like, I don't get it. I don't know if it's the routes that the way they're trying to utilize him. I don't get it. But this is not what you need and should be getting out of Stephon Diggs, especially how hot he was running the first month and a half of the season.
Can I say something? I did this the other day. I was sitting around my house. I went back and watched that Chargers-Bills game from the COVID year on YouTube. And when you just brought that up, it just kind of sparked this in my head. The route Stephon Diggs was running in that game and how he was getting open are night and day to what we've been seeing the Bills do with Diggs these last couple of months or so. Was that the excitement on how they used Diggs when he first got here, if you just go back and watch some of those games from that COVID year, is a lot different than what we're seeing and where Diggs is even lining up and where he ends up when Josh Allen is throwing him the ball. That you're right when you bring up if maybe they're just not doing the right thing with him. But since you brought that up, it was totally noticeable when I went back and watched the Chargers-Bills game from back during COVID.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have the answer. I don't really know what it is because again, target share. I mean, 5 in the Dallas game, but we know they just ran the ball a ton effectively in that one. 8 targets. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, he's 8 to 10 is probably where he should be at the least, week in and week out. These numbers are just crazy to me, and I don't have an answer as to why that this is the way it's been for 9-10 games at this point in time, especially since again he was on fire coming out the gate early in the season. I do think that it has to turn. I mean, I know they're winning, but I think it's also no coincidence that the passing game overall still hasn't been great, even under Joe Brady, and Stephon Diggs is not cooking either.
And I really thought that this would be the game, John, to be honest with you, that what they've gotten from James Cook the last couple of weeks in how the Chargers defense was against the pass was that this was a game where I thought it would open up the passing game a little bit more and we'd see a bigger Stephon Diggs game. And I got to be honest with you, I'm shocked that we didn't actually see that in this one because I thought it set up perfectly for that type of offense for the Bills this week against the Chargers, and it just wasn't.
Yeah, well, the offense just wasn't really in general. I mean, run, pass, they just, for whatever
I got to
reason.
say this. Khalil Shakir, John, is impressing me more and more each week. The play he made to set up the 3rd touchdown there where he caught the ball behind him and got extra yards. I mean, I think for a guy that we talked about going into the season during training camp, is he going to make the roster or not? I think he's doing really well right now.
Well, you were talking maybe about him not making the roster. I certainly was not. I mean,
No, 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 no. I meant the general talk on.
oh yeah. I
I've
mean,
always been a big Khalil Shakir. Yeah, go on.
I thought you were about to.
I was gonna butcher his name, so we'll
Yeah,
just keep going.
uh, it's late on Christmas Eve. He just makes plays every single time he's called upon, and his target share, his opportunities are usually minimal. 2, 3 targets maybe a game. He seems to catch every single one of them. He makes big plays in big moments. Certainly, the play that was originally ruled a touchdown, then said he was touchdown and set up the game-winning field goal. That was big. I I think he's a fantastic piece, and I think they should utilize it more. But again, and then you get into this conversation of, well, you want to try to get Diggs going. You don't want to completely abandon Gabe Davis again. Dalton Kincaid has basically fallen off since the past few weeks, and Dawson Knox is now back in the mix. He had 2 for 26, as Kincaid had 1 for 7 on 2 targets. It's just where do you find the places to give him the ball? But I agree. Every single time he touches it and gets the chance, he capitalizes.
You talk about James Cook coming off that big game against Dallas and Fred Jackson. I can't remember if you had joined the show yet when Fred and I were talking about this. Uh, Cook with trouble holding on to the ball. He had 2 fumbles, lost one. I think someone on the Bills landed on the second one, but a tough go at it in this game. But as Fred pointed out to me, and I agree with it, thought we'd see a lot more from James Cook in the passing game to get him out in space into areas where he can take off and gain extra yards. We didn't see it. I know there were reports that you'd know better than I did that he had a stomach bug or something during the middle of the week that kept
He was
him out of
sick. He
practice.
missed practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I thought it was good that McDermott showed faith in him that, when he was having trouble hanging on to the ball, he was the hero against the Cowboys. We saw earlier in the season when he dropped a ball against the Eagles, we saw him get taken out. I think we saw in the past, if he fumbled the ball, he'd be taken out for a while, but he was right back in there.
They needed him. I mean, he's proven of late, particularly, that he's one of their biggest playmakers offensively. And I agree with the passing game. I thought he had a catch, but maybe a penalty wiped it out because he doesn't have a target in the game. But it, I would like to just get him in space. That's what Fred Jackson kept saying on the show. He likes to get Cook the ball in space. I agree. It's easier said than done, of course. You got to find the space. The space has to be there. But yeah, I like getting him on the perimeter and letting him utilize his quickness and speed. But you're right. I mean, the story of this game in terms of James Cook is the fumbles and McDermott continuing to ride him and give him opportunities after it, because we've seen it go the other way. He does need to hold on to the football. I mean, the first fumble, I think they got it back, and I was thinking, what is he doing? And the second one, I mean, you can't have it. You can't have it. These are the self-inflicted wounds that plagued the Bills when they were losing to the Patriots and losing to the Jets and losing to Denver and nearly lost here to a Chargers team that they had no business it being this close. So, uh, 20 carries for 70 yards. I mean, it's not efficient, but in a game where Josh Allen only threw it 21 times, I think it's interesting that they're willing and showing that they'll lean into James Cook even when he makes mistakes.
Yeah, it just seemed like he was showing flashes at time in this one of what we saw against the Cowboys, but also at the same time, and you can give the Chargers defense credit for bottling him up. It didn't seem like he had as many breakaway, or there was one run where he got to the outside and it looked like something where he could pull away and he didn't. It seemed like the entire team, including James Cook, was a step slow in this one.
Yeah, offensively, at least they weren't there. They didn't have it, and I mean, maybe someone could use the excuse of it was a short week or traveling out west. I mean, I know it's not nothing, but I don't really put much weight into it. Just think they were flat. They've been riding high, even if you go into the Philly game before the bye week. They've been running high under Joe Brady as the interim OC. And this is the first time, really, for, especially the early portion of the game, that they didn't have their fastball. And they kind of had to work their way through it, had some big plays, and sucked out a win.
Yep, looked like the offense playing in San John. We got to mention Ed Oliver coming up clutch when many who have seen this play out this year, that the Bills get the lead late with little time left on the clock, but something happens where the team that shouldn't beat them beats them on a last-second field goal. But Ed Oliver was having nothing of that. Ed Oliver continues to have a solid season this year, and none bigger, at least when it comes to where they are and keeping themselves in control of the playoffs, of getting that big sack on Easton Stick towards the end of the game there, with leaving just 1 second left on the clock.
I mean, he's not having a solid season. He's having a career year. I mean, he should be a Pro Bowler. I think from an interior standpoint, I think he has a case to be an All-Pro. I mean, he's at 8.5 sacks now because he had 2 in this football game, and he's been on a tear. I mean, 8.5, he hits his incentive. So he said he told the family, if he hit the incentive, it's going to be an extra special Christmas. Here's the thing, Kevin, probably on this show, when the Bills gave him this new 4-year contract extension, I thought, what are they doing? Like, why are you paying a guy $20 million a year, 15, $20 million a year? It didn't make sense to me. And he's out playing it right now. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, he's playing phenomenal. It's a career year. He's being everything that people thought and hoped he would be when they drafted him in 2019. A incredibly athletic, while undersized, pass rushing, penetrating interior defensive lineman, and he's been fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, you could say Leonard Floyd has maybe been the most flashy, and he's been phenomenal on the outside, but Ed Oliver maybe is the most important piece to a defensive line that's had a fantastic season overall.
You were down there on the sidelines, John. I'll go off of, because you haven't watched the game from Peacock like I had the pleasure of doing. Von Miller looks like he's not even trying out there. Like, honest to God, John, there were 2 plays where I watched him rush, and it legit looked like it was just a walkthrough, and he had no intention of trying to bulldoze his way past the lineman blocking him. I almost think it's a waste of time having him out there right now.
No argument there. I mean, I have to look at the stats because he did nothing for me to notice him on the field. 1 tackle. I think what will be really interesting is what happens when A.J. Epinesa is back. I mean, you have Leonard Floyd, you have Greg Rousseau, you have A.J. Epinesa. I mean, I guess if Vaughn is your 4th defensive end, that's fine, I guess. But to me, you can't not play him. Like, I guess they always talk about, hey, the best players will be out there, but I don't know. I think if you're gonna say we're gonna play the best 48 or whatever it may be, on game day, dress the best 48, I think you might have to seriously start having a conversation of, is it better to go Greg Rousseau, Leonard Floyd, A.J. Epinesa, Shaq Lawson, and then even Kingsley Jonathan? Because the only reason that you would bring Miller in would be because you think he's more of a pass rushing guy off the edge than Kingsley Jonathan or Shaq Lawson, who are maybe better against the run. But he's not good at anything right now. And obviously, it's a larger conversation of, is this just what Von Miller is now for the rest of his career? or is this just Von Miller, it, the knee, maybe he needs the full offseason to get back. I don't know, but we're talking about the here and now, and he has been completely a non-factor since he returned, and it's been what, months? It's been months now. Jacksonville. I mean, it's been months since he has come off the pup list and played games, and he's not good.
You keep waiting for, okay, is this going to be the game where all of a sudden he pops and it's okay, there's Von Miller, he's back. I just don't know how else to say it when you say I didn't notice him out there. I noticed him out there for the wrong reasons. And he's usually 2 steps behind the ball being released from the quarterback. There were a couple of times during the game where, a second and a half or a beat faster and he's getting to the quarterback and you're not getting some completion 15 yards down the field. It doesn't look right. It almost seems like he's pacing himself with a vision ahead to what might lie ahead when he really needs to put it all on the line. I guess that's it. I get the feeling that he's not in a place where he's going to put it all on the line right now from what I see. And I really can't say that. I mean, it's Von Miller, but judging from what I'm seeing TV-wise, I don't know, John. It really popped out to me in this game, like tag football almost.
Well, you said it. You had a better vantage point of it. Here's the issue: the Bills can't get out of the contract. They're not doing it now. They're not going to be able to do it for next year. So, for a guy who's made a Hall of Fame career off athleticism, an incredible bend on the edge, and just quickness. I mean, even a year ago when he first came to the Bills, that was something that took me back, was his explosiveness, his suddenness, his quicks off the line of scrimmage and off the ball. And you're right, you don't see it. And again, is it lost for good? Or is it something that because of his age and the significance of the injury, it just maybe will take more time than even normal, typical younger players and athletes need to recover from an ACL. I mean, most of the time you hear 2 years. Like they can get on the field in a year, but then you need almost a full other year to get back to it. That's what you have to be hopeful for. And here's the positive for this season, at least. He doesn't need to be Von Miller. He just needs to do something, right? Because he's now their 4th or 5th defensive end. So you don't need him. It would be great if he was back and getting to the quarterback and even in a reduced snap count as the 4th guy comes in for situational pass rushing situations and is good. But that's what I think the most troubling thing is. Even in the limited amount of time that they're asking him to do things, he can't do it. So honestly, I just think you just forget about it at this point. And they're like, oh, well, Von's out there, so you're not really going to expect anything. And then if he does, it's almost like Poona Ford. The guy doesn't really play much, gets on the field, you don't notice much, and then he has the big sack, and he has a nice tackle as well in this game. I mean, that's really what you need. You're just like, okay, could you get one sack? And it hasn't come yet.
Speaking of sack, your guy Cam Lewis, big sack early in this game. Do a feature on Cam Lewis, and he's noticeable, at least early on, John. I did not think the Chargers would be able to move the ball as well as they did at times in this game, especially coming off games against Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott. It's really weird, the phenomena. We've talked about this a lot with all these backups playing this year, that some of them just come in, and we know that the Chargers got smoked by the Raiders last week, but it seemed like a little more coaching, a little more comfortable for Easton Stick, and he was finding receivers down the field when he had time, John, and not making mistakes. I thought the Bills could have forced him into making some mistake either here or there, but that really didn't happen.
Yeah, I thought he played well. All things considered, 23, 33, 215. He didn't turn the football over. He got sacked 5 times, so they were producing pressure, but he wasn't really putting the ball in harm's way. He wasn't making poor decisions, some dump offs, giving his receivers and using his legs to extend some plays or even just take off. He 7 attempts for 25 yards, had the touchdown. Here's the interesting thing that, again, not paying attention to the numbers during the game, just kind of paying attention and absorbing it organically through the field. 90 yards on the opening drive. The Chargers total had 273 in the game. So they had 180 yards the rest of the way in all of these possessions. And the second half, they weren't really, they'd get a couple first downs and kick a field goal. They were getting good field position to start, and they were making enough plays. I think the Bills tried to fluster the young quarterback, and usually Sean McDermott's good at that and putting them in poor situations and really ramping things up to make mistakes. He didn't do that. I think all things considered, he played almost well enough for them to win the football game. He just probably needed to make one or two more plays or have somebody on his team, like that 90-yard drive. Quentin Johnston drops a touchdown pass on a great throw. If he catches that, the Bills, they maybe score the touchdown at the end, but it's a different game. And that's what you need from a young quarterback in a tough situation. But, yeah, I was impressed with, while modest in overall production, in the performance by Easton Stick.
Yeah, I really didn't see that one coming, but it did nonetheless. How about, and then we'll start to wrap it up and we'll go enjoy the Christmas weekend, John. The drive at the end where it looked like Shakir had a touchdown. I thought he got up in time to get into the end zone, but apparently they reversed it. I thought since it was called a touchdown on there, but I also believe that in the end that really helped them lock up the win. Although, man, oh man, was I thinking that Stick was going to throw a ball down the middle to a wide receiver, pass interference, balls near the 40, and the Chargers kicker, who doesn't miss, would come in and win the game on a last-second field goal with no time on the clock. But it didn't, thanks to Ed Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that the cookie was crumbling early in the season. Was you didn't have faith in the defense making a stop. You didn't really even have faith that the offense would be able to put together a drive at the end of the game. And both units did that, able to bleed the clock. I get what you're saying. Maybe it was better because had the Bills scored, there still was like well over a minute left in the game, or 2 minutes maybe even.
Yeah, it was close to 2.
So with no timeout, and then the Chargers ended up burning their timeouts, and so they didn't have any on that final drive with 20-some seconds to go. So you're right. It probably made things – it certainly made it harder for the Chargers, pinned all the way back at the 25, knowing, hey, we have no timeouts. We have to drive the ball down the field. Obviously, they didn't do it. But I also agree with Fred Jackson. You want to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
So had they scored a touchdown, presumably go for 2? And then,
Absolutely.
But hey, it played out how it played out. And them not scoring a touchdown also allowed me to run around like a bat out of hell to try to overcome some technical issues that we were having.
Yeah, and before we go, what a difference a year makes, John. This time last year, I was trapped in a hotel in downtown Buffalo. You had to drive through Canada to get back to Buffalo from Chicago after the game, and it's going to be in the upper 50s on Christmas Day, mid-50s the day after. I'm weighing, do I go play hockey with the guys because we have ice time the day after Christmas, or do I try to go out and hit some golf balls and play around at 18? Don't know what I'm going to do yet.
I would golf because, and I want to go golfing with you on Tuesday, but my parents are in town from Ohio, and I just don't think that I can say, hey, thanks for driving 3 hours and coming in for Christmas and spending time with us,
Rent some
I'm gonna go
clubs.
golf. I mean, my dad plays. I don't know if he'd want to. Then my mom doesn't play, so then it's this whole thing.
I
So we'll
get it.
just enjoy some time, even though I thought it was impressive when we golfed on Thanksgiving, and I think even like a week later, years ago, it
Yes.
would be incredibly awesome to say, "Hey, in Buffalo, I golfed on Christmas."
Yep.
But alas, family first.
Yep. And I golfed on Valentine's Day last year. That was actually in the 60s on Valentine's Day. All right, we got the Bills, Patriots. Like we said, John, the Bills are in control now. They got some help. So you beat the Patriots. The Dolphins have the Cowboys coming up, and then the Ravens. So who knows how this is all going to pan out moving forward.
All right, I'm on the New York Times playoff machine here.
Do it.
All right, so the Bills are currently 80% chance to make the playoffs here.
That's
Host the wild card 37, the wild card 43, out 20%, obviously. Let's see. All we need to see here is if the Dolphins lose, it basically stays the same around 80% if the Cowboys beat the Dolphins. It's the only one I'm looking at. But obviously then that would bring into the mix here. The Bills could then catch them for the division because Miami would be only one game ahead of them. And then if the Bills beat them, they would have beat them twice, and they would win the tiebreaker, and they would win the AFC East. So incredible that this is where we're at, but 80% according to the New York Times playoff machine. And so that Cincinnati loss is massive. And now, currently, of course, they won, and nobody else has played yet. But as we tape this, the wee hours of Christmas Eve morning at 9-6, the Bills are in the playoffs. They just need, Indianapolis, Houston are the only teams that also have 6 losses.
Pretty incredible. Patriots with a 1 o'clock game in Buffalo coming up next week. John, we'll be back on Wednesday, John, after the holidays. Bills start getting ready for the Pats, so John and I will be back with a Fresh Buffalo End Zone podcast. And then that's going to do it for this one, John. Let's celebrate the holidays. For Jon Scott, I'm Kevin Carroll. As always, thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a good holiday weekend.